Hi guys, and welcome back to Locals Update episode 10. Sorry about not posting on Wednesday, but I had been busy all week working on this new deck, which I wanted to show. So I will just jump straight in, because for the first double digits episode of Locals Update, I wanted to show off a new deck from the Fiendsmith Blue Eyes that I've been playing. So this is Orcust. Oh, that's the wrong file. Orcust Mitsurugi. And so this is basically just a deck that I have been working on for quite a while. I feel is going to be extremely strong in this format, due to how it plays, how strong the Mitsurugi cards are especially, but also because there is new Orcust support coming out just before Nationals, and due to that, this will most likely be the deck that I will bring to Nationals, because it's the engine cards in both of these decks' ability to play a second is completely unmatched. Like, for example, there is a Mitsurugi card that I don't currently have yet, but I have ordered, that basically is a Raigeki whenever it is special summoned, once per turn, obviously, hard once per turn. But so if your opponent has made like a board full of strong monsters, if you get out that Mitsurugi monster, I believe he is Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, he just completely destroys your opponent's entire board, which is obviously really, really strong. As well as the Orcust cards playing really well into finding ways to basically just make a bunch of interesting board states that make it really hard for your opponent to stop you. And due to negation being so hard to come by, and not as being typically as negate destroy anymore, the Orcust cards really thrive off of that, and especially Girsu, who I will go into whenever I get into the deck profile. So, as I said, I don't have all of the Mitsurugi cards here to show off, and so there is a few placeholders that I've just been using kind of in testing. But most of them are just cards I do already have and can show, just I'm using as just a placeholder. But I do have all the cards ordered in, and so hopefully I will be able to show them off in next week's Locals Update. But the deck was really strong last night. Didn't get as many wins, but without the no Murakumo, the Mitsurugi Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, which is kind of the Mitsurugi boss monster, that made quite a bit of sense, just because like I didn't have as much strength in my M boards as I may have wanted, and you could that was definitely that could definitely be felt, and especially with not having like just a Raigeki at points was definitely felt as well. But anyway, I'll get into the deck profile, because I've yapped enough about what I want the deck to do and why I think it's a good deck. So to begin, I'll go over the Orcust starters. So we have free Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight, free Armageddon Knight, Foolish Burial, and also free Orcust Harpur. So I will explain, and finally a Foolish Burial. So I will explain what all of these guys do. Basically, the way Orcust plays is that all of the monsters have an effect in grave where if they banish themselves and then they will do something, and typically special summon a monster. So Harp Horror specials from deck. That's why we're playing 3 of him, because he is the best one. Nightmare will send increase a monster's attack and send a monster from deck to grave. Gearsu, whenever you use normal summons, normal or special summons specifically, he will send an Orcust to grave. And there is Symbol Skeleton, who gets to special summon an Orcust name from grave. So, and then there's World Legacy World Wand, who is an honorary Orcust card because he revives from banished. So basically what these 7 cards do is send all of your Orcust names to grave. So Armageddon Knight will send gets to send whenever he's not summoned, a dark monster whenever he's summoned specifically. Gearsu sends an Orcust or a World Legacy monster whenever he's summoned, and Foolish Burial just sends a monster whenever it's used. So that is how you get into your 1-card Orcust combos. The difference between Gearsu and these other 2 is that he also has another effect where he can give you and your opponent a token, which is really, really strong, and actually came up last night because my opponent tried to use Mulcharmy Thualos, but I had already given us both tokens. And you can only use the Mulcharmies if you do not control any cards. So he was in control of a token, and so just could not Mulcharmy Thualos me, which was obviously really, really strong. Because the Mulcharmies are some of the best cards in the format right now. And honestly, this deck plays quite well around them. Like, they can get their interruptions up quite quickly and quite efficiently to where they don't have to worry about the Mulcharmies being a threat. So, the reason, though, I am playing 3 Orcust Harp Horror is he is the one that is a bit different from the other 7 cards here, in the fact that he isn't a 1-card starter. He is a really good 2-card starter if you can normal summon him, and because of how many Mitsurugi starters that don't normal summon there are, that is quite often. But as well as that, the way we get from the Mitsurugi engine into the Orcust engine, if we don't have any Orcust monsters, is by sending cards to the grave, is through the Zombie Vampire. So this guy needs 2 level 8s, which all of your Mitsurugi rituals are. And basically what he does is he sends the top 4 cards from the deck to the grave. So that's already quite good for Orcust, because most of the Orcust names want to be in grave, which is why that's quite good anyway. But then he also allows you to revive a monster. So if, for example, I were to send Armageddon Knight gets sent, I can revive Armageddon Knight and his effect can go off to send a Harp Horror. As well as if Harp Horror gets sent, I can revive Harp Horror and then just link off Harp Horror and say like the Zombie Vampire into Galatea, and then I still have Harp Horror's effect. So that is really, really nice just to have that ability, just kind of basically 9 cards to where if these guys get sent, I can go into my Orcust engine, which is quite nice. So next we have the one-ofs I play in the Orcust, for the Orcust engine. And that is, I'll start with the card that kind of the Orcust cards all revolve around, and that is Orchestrated Babel. So this card is quite an interesting field spell because it makes it so that you can activate the effects of Orcust monsters in your grave and your Link monsters effects as quick effects while this is up. So your Orcust cards in grave suddenly become interaction during your opponent's turn, which is obviously really, really strong, because it makes it so that you can gather follow-up as well as gain as well as disrupt your opponent. And if this card is in your grave, except the turn it was sent there, you can send the card from your hand to the grave to add this card to hand. So that's also really, really nice. So the next one of are the other Orcust names that we play, that I play, sorry. And that is the one Orcust Nightmare, the one World Legacy World Wand, and the one Symbol Skeleton. So these cards are all great. Orcust Nightmare is really good to summon off of Heart Horror if you start with Gearsu, because it is basically just another, it just substitutes itself pretty much for either a Symbol Skeleton or World Wand, because it sends any Dark Machine to grave. So you can send World Wand and then World Wand revive the Harp Horror that you sent off Gearsu. Now you have 2 level 4s on board, and you can make King of the Feral Imps, who is the bridge from the Orcust engine into the Mitsurugi engine, because he is a dark level rank 4 Xyz monster that allows you to detach a material to add a reptile monster from your deck to your hand. And because there's non-normal summonable 1-card starters in Mitsurugi that are reptiles, that's really, really strong. So next up, so World Wand, as I said, allows you to revive an Orcust name from your banished pile. And Symbol Skeleton allows you to revive an Orcust name from your grave, which is the typical form of interruption in this deck, because there is an Orcust, Dingirsu, the Orcust Evening Star, is a monster who, whenever it's special summoned, allows you to either non-targeting send an opponent's card to the grave or attach a banished Orcust name. So really, really strong going first and second, but I will show you him in a bit. And the final Orcust card one of I play is Orcust Crescendo. This is basically just your typical Omni-Negate. It's an Omni-Negate counter trap, which is very important. And it also banishes the monster that, it banishes whatever it negates. So that can also be quite important for any like spell or trap cards that have graveyard effects, such as Wishes for Eyes of Blue. You just flip up Crescendo to negate Wishes, or you flip up Crescendo when your opponent tries to activate True Light, and suddenly they have no way to use True Light anymore. So that's really, really nice. Also, it has another effect that I probably will never use in this deck specifically, but it's good for pure Orcust decks if anyone wants to play those, to where it can, if it's sent to, it can banish itself from the grave to add a Dark Machine monster from deck to hand. So this can get Gearsu, the Orcust Mech-Knight, who's a 1-card starter for Orcust. So that's especially important for whenever the new Orcust stuff comes out, because then Foolish Burial Goods will make this a 1-card starter without using up, without using up any, though it will, no, sorry, not without using up, it will lock you into Dark Machines though. So an end board piece you typically want to end on in Orcust is IP Masquerena. This stops that from happening. But so I typically won't be using Orcust Crescendo, but it's a nice effect to have anyway. Next, I have the starters for the Mitsurugi engine. So I have free Ame no Habakiri no Mitsurugi, free Mitsurugi no Makoto Aramasa, and this is one of the cards I had to sub in for it instead. It wouldn't actually be Imperm. It is just Aramasa, but I don't have the third Aramasa yet. And then we also have Mitsurugi Prayers. And again, that's another card that I don't have a third one of, so I just sub in this. So basically, these cards are all amazing. this card is typically what you want to get to. This is your typical combo starter in Mitsurugi. It is what you'll add off of King of the Fire Lamps. It's what you'll add off of Prayers. And it is what you'll add off Aramasa. Because what it allows you to do is special summon a Mitsurugi monster from your deck. Oh. And whenever you do that, it basically allows you special summon a Mitsurugi monster from deck, and then tribute a monster. All of the Mitsurugi main deck monsters have an effect whenever they're tributed. So typically you'll summon out Mitsurugi and no Mikoto Saji, who will allow you to add prayers, and then you can use prayers to get one of the other Mitsurugi rituals by tributing Ame no Habakiri no Mitsurugi, as well as pay 800 to special summon. So that allows you to get a free body on board that is a level 4, as well as a search off of no Habakiri no Mitsurugi, who also, because he allows you to search any Mitsurugi card when tributed, as well as getting a search for a Mitsurugi monster off prayers. So that's really, really strong. But what's the way this... so you want to typically just... If you open Mitsurugi prayers, you'll just go Mitsurugi prayers, effect to add Ame. And then whenever you go Ame for Saji, instead of adding prayers, you'll just add Mitsurugi ritual, which is what you'll typically add off of the tribute of Habakiri anyway. And that makes him a non-normal summon 1-card starter, as well as Purrs a non-normal summon 1-card starter. And Aramasa is a normal summon 1-card starter, but that is okay, because say you open up Aramasa plus Harpur, because of the way the Mitsurugi cards work, you will have 2 extra bodies, and I will show a link package in the extra deck that you can make under the Orcust cards as well, that basically just allows you to go full combo anyway if you just open Aramasa plus any, well, actually no, it is just any Orcust name, which is very, very strong and very, like, very potent, and just really has a lot of potential for being explosive on your opponent's turn. So that is the 1-card starters in Mitsurugi. Next, I will show the one-ofs I play. So I do only play one Saji because he isn't a 1-card starter by himself, and he is so easy to get out of the deck. I also play the one Kusanagi. This card is fantastic for grind game. So basically, whenever he's normal summoned or tributed, he allows you to target a Mitsurugi card in your banished or grave and add it back to hand. So say any of your big Mitsurugi rituals, such as the Murakumo, gets banished by your, like, bestial or called by the grave, you can target it to add it back to hand with Kusanagi. So that's really, really nice. Next we have the 2 Mitsurugi ritual monsters that are one-ofs. So again, I don't have the Murakumo, so this is the stand-in for that currently, because it's a level 8 dark machine, well, level 8 dark, but it will be Murakumo whenever I get that, which will hopefully be this week. And what Murakumo does is everything, kind of. He is sort of an omni-negate, because the way his negate works is whenever your opponent activates a card or effect, you can, your opponent, what it basically does is you activate his effect to negate, but your opponent can negate the effect by discarding a card. So that can be really, really strong in decks that, especially decks that need 2-card combos to go off. But especially in decks that need, where because you're setting up so much interruption anyway with all of your other cards, having just a -1 on on some decks can be really, really harmful, especially with like current decks in the meta, such as Malice, where they don't really want to discard like an extender, because if their one starter gets stopped in any way, which is very easy to do, they don't really want to just end their turn because their starter got stopped. So not only that, but he's also a Raigeki whenever he's special summoned. He also has all of the other Mitsurugi ritual effects, to where when they are tributed, they can add a Mitsurugi card, and if they were probably ritual summoned, they can special summon themselves back. And whenever he's special summoned, he Raigekis. He destroys all monsters your opponent controls, non-targeting. So that's just kind of insane. Like, he's such a strong card. Definitely, if I had him last night, I feel like I may have gone 3-1, maybe even 1-3, lost one, maybe even 4-0, where I won all 4. But such a strong card. And then another really strong card is Futsu, no Mitama, no Mitsurugi. This is another really strong card, because whenever your opponent special summons a monster, you get to just target a reptile in your grave, special summon it. So say your opponent finds a way to get rid of your, obviously not this guy, but say your opponent finds a way to get rid of your, what's his name, Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, you can just go, okay, Futsu effect whenever they special summon, bring back Ame no Mitsurugi, Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, and Raigeki their board, which is just completely crazy. It also allows you to bring back other stuff, such as Kusanagi, who then gives you follow for the next turn. Again, just really, really strong and really, really nice combo cards. And now we have the typical cards that I will be searching off of all of these guys' effects. So we have Ritual is definitely the strongest. It allows you to Ritual summon a reptile from your deck by tributing reptiles on your field. That is typically the second effect you will use in Mitsurugi Ritual, because both of its effects can be activated once per turn. So if you can add it back to hand by something like Kusanagi, it's really, really strong, because you can do both of its effects, which are both equally as strong as each other. So you will typically do the second effect to bring out Futsu, is the way I like to work it. And you will go, the first effect allows you to ritual summon a reptile monster from hand by tributing up to 2 reptiles from your hand, deck, or field. So that's crazy as well, because say you have the Murakumo in hand, which is really easy to do because you can search it. You just tribute Nomakuru Kusanagi, as well as Aramasa, to pretty much just bring out him. And then you just go Kusanagi effect to add back ritual. Well, I say him, I mean Murakumo. Add back ritual, tribute Murakumo to bring out Futsu. And now you have 2 level 8s specifically, which is important because, as I showed, zombie vampires are rank 8. Bring out those 2 and just combo off to the moon from there. So obviously really, really, Ritual is just an absolutely busted card and just makes this deck so strong. I am only playing it 1 though, because it's super easy searchable and it isn't technically a 1 card starter, so I just kind of want to add it to hand most of the time, and Kusanagi can recycle it anyway, so why not. Next we have the other 1 cards that are kind of just searchable cards that don't add it. Well, 1 adds something to the end board, but 1 is also just for breaking my opponent's board, and that is Mitsurugi no Miko Wusu. So the way this card works is I tribute a reptile, one other reptile in my hand, and one monster my opponent controls. So that's really good for breaking boards. However, it is only for going second, and as well, I have to do it last, because if I want to use his effect to special summon himself by tributing an opponent's monster, I get locked into special summoning and activating reptile monsters' effects for the rest of the turn. And because all of the Orcust monsters are dark machines, I can't use their effects. But the other card is Mitsurugi Magatama. So this allows me again as well, because it's a quick play, it can be an end board piece, which is quite nice. And it basically allows me to tribute a reptile, then target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it, which is quite nice. And it also allows me to potentially ritual summon Mitsurugi, if it comes to that. But hopefully most of the times it won't come to that, and I'll just be able to use ritual to ritual summon my Mitsurugis. But next we have the non-engine, which is quite small, because the engine in these decks are so good at going second anyway, that you honestly kind of can eschew using normal, just non-engine that trades 1-for-1, and instead play big, heavy hitters that really hurt your opponent, as well as more protective non-engine, such as Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which is obviously good going first or second, because with the Mulcharmies about, you don't really want to have to use Ash. It can be quite harmful. The Mulcharmies can be quite harmful, and Ash being able to stop them, at least one of them anyways, is quite nice, because you do really need 2 Mulcharmies, crazily, to have any sort of effect on both of these engines, which is kind of crazy, but it is the truth. And then next we have another defensive hand trap in Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So both of these engines do actually have quite a bit of problem with being banished. So Ghost Bell being able to stop any of that, stop a Bestial from banishing something like your Murakumo when it's trying to come back, is really, really nice. As well as Ghost Bell just kind of being a good card this format anyway against the Malice cards, which all want to banish themselves from the graveyard. So again, really good just way to stop that. And then the final non-engine is the one Nibiru. This is really good because it tributes everything you control. And in a deck where you want to get your Orcust guys engraved typically, and your Mitsurugi guys plus off being tributed, Nibiru is just fucking crazy. Sorry for swearing as well. And then we have the Dominus Impulse. This is the best card in the format right now. I would be playing it free if I had 3 of it. I don't, because it's £60 per copy. I pulled this one from a pack of Rage of the Abyss, which I was really happy about. But yeah, this card is the best card in the format right now, and that is why I think this deck is so potent. Because the other really strong Mitsurugi variant is Mitsurugi Ryziel, that does all sort of the same stuff as going into the King of the Feral Imps and getting the Ryziel end board up, which is typically like a detonator with either twins of the Eclipse Twins or Meteorologic Aggregator equipped, as well as Ryziel Cross on the field. But it cannot use Dominus Impulse because a lot of its monsters are light. So having the Orcust engine, which can do the exact same thing of going into King of the Feral Imps, getting up some decent interaction, while also being able to play Dominus Impulse in deck, is just absolutely crazy. And finally, we have Call by the Grave, just to make all of my combos go off just that little bit smoother. And now I will get on to the extra deck. So for right now, I would say this is quite a flexible extra deck. So I am playing one Link Spider, who's an Earth, and that is just basically to make the token that Gearshru summons an effect monster. It is a QCR, quite nice. And But yeah, it just basically just does that. That's its entire purpose. Make that token something that isn't just a token. Is an effect monster and can do the same thing as for the Nibiru tokens, which is quite nice. So next we have the Galatea and the Dingirsu, and I'm actually playing 2 Galatea and 2 Dingirsu, because if Dingirsu gets banished, while yes you can revive him with World Wand, you typically don't want to do that because there's better targets to revive with World Wand. So playing just 2 just in case is quite nice. It also could be ripped out of the extra deck by something like a Kashtira Unicorn. So having an extra backup is nice for Dingirsu. And typically Galatea you do actually want to play it too, because you never really want to bring it back from grave. And being able to use it to just recycle guys constantly is really, really nice from your banish pile. So that's also really, really nice. And obviously it sets your Orcust spell traps, so it will get you your Orchestrated Babel, it'll get you your Orcust Crescendo if you've opened Babel already, is really, really good. Or if you're going on next turn, you can set the Orcust Crescendo, obviously, as well. Really, really nice. So next we have Longirsu. This is also just kind of so that we can have a link free for going into access code with, to make him 5300, as well as having a strong... he also has a very strong effect where he recycles 2 of your Orcust monsters to revive, to send an opponent's linked monster, which is as well very, very nice. Next we have IP Masquerena and SP Little Knight. So these 2 are a typical mainstay in a lot of decks. A lot of decks have been using this, but it's especially nice in this deck because these are darks. And so even if you're locked into dark for your Orcust monsters, you can still make them, which is really, really nice. And that is why I haven't considered playing Foolish Burial Goods in this deck for Crescendo, because I can't make IP into SP, which just doesn't feel great because IP into SP is such a strong play. And also, the boards typically need a bit of room. So IP just being able to get rid of stuff is really, really nice. And there are some other IP targets in this deck, such as Scareclaw Tryhard. So this is what I'm talking about when it needs a bit more room. This uses 3 monsters, so IP has to be 1, but can use 2 other monsters. And it's so strong. It is one of the strongest cards I've seen in a while. Well, it's really strong whenever you make it using IP Masquerena, because it is a link free that makes it so that all face-up monsters on the field are changed into defense position, which is obviously it's really nice as well because it's dark, so it can be made after using Orcust effects. But it makes it so all face-up monsters are on the field are changed to defense position if they can be. And it is also unaffected by defense position monsters, by the activated effects of defense position monsters specifically, which is important. But it's just really, really strong and really, really hard to get rid of if my opponent can't change their monsters to attack position, because 3k, because with IP, it makes all monsters all monsters that used it as material cannot be destroyed by card effect. So having this guy who's unaffected by defense position monsters and is also really hard to battle over with, well, not battle over, and can't be destroyed by spell or traps, is really, really strong, and also can't be destroyed by monster effects, such as link monsters. The only real monster that can out it is something like an SP Little Knight or a Chaos Angel, which takes a lot of investment just to get rid of one card, which is obviously really nice because it costs my opponent so much just to get rid of that one card. So the next line Link summon line is a bit weird. It is beat cut from the underworld into a Byaku, the Lightless Shadow. So this is kind of stupid, but beat cut from the underworld allows me to tribute a monster to place a patrol counter on a card I control. And whenever if that card would be destroyed, I can just detach that patrol counter instead, and it will protect it. So while that seems not very strong, because all of the Mitsurugi cards plus off being tributed, I can tribute something like a Futsu, bring it back, get an extra Mitsurugi card, and then also place a patrol counter on something like Orchestrated Babel, which is really, really strong, because Orchestrated Babel is where most of the Orcust play comes from, and interaction comes from on your opponent's turn. So being able to protect it from like a Harpy's Feather Duster or a Lightning Storm once per turn is really, really nice. And then it's also Link 2 themed, which is especially good for a Byaku, the Lightless Shadow. This is one of the best Link monsters that has been printed in a while. It is a Link 4 that needs 2+ monsters, including a Fiend monster. So that is why I am playing the Beat Cup. And basically what it does is, during the main phase, I can discard a card, which is important for Aramasa lines where I have to normal summon Aramasa, because I will get enough bodies to make a bow if I don't end up hitting anything off of Zombie Vampire. But it's also super important that it basically allows me to discard a card, then banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, special a Light or Dark from my grave. So it can revive the, yet again, Ame no Murakumo no Mitsurugi, who, as I've said, is when special summoned, is Raigeki, which is very, very strong. It also can revive something like Dingirsu, who on summon can send an opponent's monster to grave, and send an opponent's card to grave, non-targeting. Again, really good. And I can even revive IP Masquerena. So I can just have a Byaku sitting on the field and then go into IP Masquerena, bring back, and it just is completely crazy. So a really, really good card that also allows me to, during my standby, draw cards equal to the amount of types I have in my grave. And as I've shown, I have Cybers, I have Warriors, I have Beast Warriors, I have Fiends, I have Machines, I have Reptiles. So that can be a draw 6 and then put 6 back, which basically just allows me to sculpt my hand on the turn after I get out a bow, which is very, very strong as well. Because I basically just have everything I need to just win the game from there. And then the last few cards are Access Code Talker. This guy is just great for ending games. He can go up to 53 and then just pop cards, a bunch of cards. Not as many in this deck because there isn't as many attributes, but to banish off of his effect, because he has to banish a Link monster from grave and to destroy a card, and it can't be responded to. But he is still just a 5300 attack body, which is obviously really, really strong. Next is the stand-in for King of the Feral Imps, and as I said, I have a King of the Feral Imps coming in. This isn't... I used this last night, Nightmare Phoenix last night. Never really came up though, and I am going to be playing King of the Feral Imps over it. And basically what King of the Feral Imps is a dark rank 4 that allows me to add a reptile whenever by detaching one from it. So really, really nice card. Next we have Time Thief Reader. This is basically just another dark rank 4 that I can go into in cases where I don't want to special summon. Basically just a rank 4 where I've already got access to both engines, and so I'm just going to go into Time Thief Reader just to have a different rank 4 that gives another interaction. So it's quite nice, because what he allows me to do is depending on what is attached to him, he has different effects. So if he has a monster attached, he can banish himself to the end phase, which you'll typically always have because you make him with 2 level 4 monsters. And during the standby phase, he can attach the top card of your opponent's deck to him. So say your opponent has, and if it's a spell, I get to draw a card whenever I detach from him. And if it is a trap, I get to place 1 card your opponent controls on top of their deck. So say my opponent has this really hard to out monster, such as a Saint Azamina, which I've talked about before, is a real nuisance because it can't be targeted and stops me from targeting all of my own cards. I can just go, oh, I'll detach a trap from Reader and bounce place Saint Azamina back on top of the extra deck, and suddenly my opponent just can't do anything. Or I can brick my opponent's next draw if I feel that's like the best course of action. And finally, we have Zombie Vampire, who, as I said, is a rank 8 who can detach a material to make both me and my opponent mill 4 cards from our deck. So also quite nice if my opponent is also playing like an Orcust variant, because I can then special summon one of those monsters and then go off from there, which obviously really, really good. And he can also still just be used for link material. And also can use any, if my opponent has a monster, I can just, if I were able to find, if I wanted to play talents in this deck, I could just go, okay, talents, take your monster, and then just use your opponent's monster to make Zombie Vampire, because he says that if you use an opponent's monster, you can use, it can be any level for him, but I believe it does still have to be a level. Let me just check. If you use a monster with a level that is owned by your opponent for the exceed summon of this card, treat it as level 8. So say my opponent has like just like a or even like an Ame no Murakumo, I can just snatch steal it, attach it under Zombie Vampire, and just go off from there. But yeah, this is definitely a longer video than most. Thank you guys for sticking around if you have. And definitely keep an eye out for this deck, because I genuinely think it is extremely strong, especially with the new Orcust stuff coming out before Nationals. I think this deck is just going to be absolutely crazy. Both engines are so strong, and because Mitsurugi is a TCG exclusive, it hasn't been as explored as most decks, because most decks get released in the OCG, which is areas like Japan and China first, and kind of like Asia first, and then get released over in the TCG, which is America, Europe, and stuff like that. But with Mitsurugi, it is a TCG exclusive, so it's kind of unexplored right now, so nobody really knows how strong all of the cards are and how to kind of interact with them. So having that, also that element of surprise almost, makes this deck just absolutely amazing. Also the cards being really good as well helps a lot as well. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I know this video is way longer than the normal, but as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.